You don't do that. You know what I mean? And let me just say this too, Robert Trujillo, I got a bone to pick with you, buddy. You should have not have took that job. And I remember that the owner, they used to play it all the time. The owner thought that David Lee Roth was Van Halen. Like that was his name. So every time they would finish playing, he'd pay him and go, "Hey man, no problem. Thanks, Van. Appreciate everything." You know? and they just never corrected him.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back to episode 4 of Speak of the Madman podcast. I'm Joshua. This is Joey. And wow, number 4. Here we are. Yep. So, anything from the last podcast, Joey, that you want to bring up? I know just before we started here, you wanted to mention.
Yeah, we were talking about, the great old album Diary of a Madman from Ozzy Osbourne. But I forgot to mention something. I don't know if many people are aware of this, but back in 2002, there was a little bit of tampering that went on off the original album. And what I mean by the tampering is, from what I understood, and I actually sourced this online, and what happened was, from what my understanding is, Sharon Osbourne, they had some royalty disputes. I think this has been going on for many years with Lee Kerslake and Bob Daisley, the original studio musicians. They recorded on those albums, Blizzard of Oz and Diary of Madman, and something that they didn't want to pay them anymore. So, from my understanding is that Sharon Osbourne did the unthinkable, the big sacrilegious thing of wiping out bass tracks and drum tracks back from the 1982 magical recording of all 4 of those guys in the studio, and decided that they were going to have Robert Trujillo, and I think his name is Mike Borden, who is the drummer from Faith No More, and re-record the tracks and put on their 2002 version of Blizzard of Oz and Diary of Madman. And also, to add insult to injury, I don't even think they even put a sticker on the CD to let people know that it wasn't the original album. Now, for everybody out there, what do you think about this? I could tell you what I think about this. I never thought that it was possible. I thought once an album was done, it's etched in stone. That's it. Doesn't matter if you don't get along with the band members anymore. Doesn't matter if you break up. It doesn't matter. None of that matters. Once you record that album is distributed and it's released, it's over. Everybody, doesn't everybody know that? You know, that album is done. You're on it. You're immortal on that album. Apparently not. Sharon Osbourne did it again. And I was reading this article here, and I want to just go through a little bit of it. It says, and I'm going to read it. This is off of philnum.com. And you can find this out in many other sources. But this one in particular says Daisley and Kerslake were unexpectedly fired by Sharon Osbourne after the recording of Diary of the Madman. Bassist Rudy Sarzo and drummer Tommy Aldridge are credited in the liner notes and pictured in the inner sleeve, but it was Daisley and Kerslake who performed all bass and drum parts in the original release. Okay, gets worse. In 1986, Daisley and Kerslake successfully sued the Osbournes for unpaid royalties, eventually winning songwriting credits on both Blizzard and Diary of the Madman. Subsequently, a 2002 reissue of the albums were made with Daisley and Kerslake original bass and drum parts removed and re-recorded. Unbelievable. The new parts were recorded by Osbourne's then drummer Mike Borden of Faith No More. Everybody knows Mike Borden of Faith No More, and bassist Robert Trujillo, Suicidal Tendencies in Metallica. Here's what Sharon said, and this is a quote. Sharon said that it was Ozzy, actually, not she, who was responsible for the decision to re-record the parts. And here stating, quote, because of Daisy and Kerslak's abuse and unjust behavior, Ozzy wanted to remove them from these recordings. We turned a negative into a positive by adding a fresh sound for the original albums. Can you believe that? Unquote. Sorry, I mean, I unquote, and then I said, can you believe that? To me, even by reading this quote, you can tell, I don't think this is correct. You know, I mean, here she says we can turn a negative into a positive by adding a fresh sound to the original recordings. Yeah, let's go ahead and repaint the Mona Lisa. We'll go ahead and get a modern painter here, and he can redo the thing, give it a fresh look. You know what I mean? Like that would be the equivalence to this artwork. You know what I mean? You just don't do that. I mean, if you're a musician, you should be highly against something like this. This is sacrilegious. So you don't just take out people whenever you want and then re-record it. And then, oh my gosh. So that was a quote. And then it says here, Ozzy contradicted his wife's claim in his 2009 autobiography, stating that the decision to re-record the original bass and drums parts were strictly Sharon's decision. Now, are you going to believe Ozzy or Sharon? He said that his wife just snapped. Okay, that power trip, and had it done without his knowledge. I didn't quote. I didn't have anything to do with that decision. Unquote. Ozzy also stated that a sticker was put on the covers telling everyone about it. Unquote. Though in fact the sticker was not initially placed on the reissue and was only placed on the covers in a later date due to fan outcry over the altered recordings. They had to get feedback, and they did it. You know what I mean?
Yep, that's exactly what I was just looking at right now. That exact quote you just said. I mean,
I'm almost done. It's almost done, and then we can talk about this because this is really unbelievable. In 2011, a deluxe 30th anniversary edition was released with all original parts restored. Ozzy said he told Sharon, quote, "You know what? Whatever the circumstances were, I want the original thing back," unquote. Can you imagine the outcry if the Osbournes had decided to remove Randy Rhoads' guitar parts? Just think about that. I mean, to me, this is just unbelievable. I will vigorously just defend my stance on how much I find this just to be disgusting, right? As a music fan, and I know all music fans should be concerned about this, because if they can do this, and if you're in a band, you would be worried that they can take you out at any time, right? They don't want to pay you or any other reason. Although I will say this, obviously once your record is distributed worldwide, everybody's got those recordings, right? I mean, so yeah, you have that, but still, they're going to record other band. I mean, this is just mind-boggling to me, right? So yeah, I mean, I thought I'd bring it up to fans' attentions that don't know about this or not familiar with this, because you're not going to hear much about this on the regular news, and they're not going to bring this up. You're going to have to dig a little deeper to find this out. Because what ended up happening back in about that time, I bought the album, right? And
the original album.
I bought the album at Tower thinking that it was going to be the original album. And so I came home, I listened to it, and I've been listening to this album since I was 5, in the 80s. I mean, I've heard for 30 years almost. So at that time, I had been listening to this album, 20-something. It sounded different. I could tell that the bass and drums were off.
Okay, so you bought the 2002 re-release.
Yes, unfortunately, yes. I bought that, and I could completely tell that it was off. Something, and then what was completely the thing that just the smoking gun was that on Crazy Train, that little demon thing that sounds at the end when he's like laughing.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm talking about? They messed that up. They did some other weird effect. It wasn't the same as that on that album to say that they were out. What they had done. I don't even care if they even give a warning. You don't do that. You know what I mean? And let me just say this too, Robert Trio. I got a bone to pick with you, buddy. you should have not have took that job. Sharon Osbourne, I understand all that, but you know what? If you have a backbone to care anything about music, I would, you shouldn't have took it. You should have said, no, I will not destroy those albums. You know what I mean? Instead, they went along and they were good little soldiers, and they decided to just go ahead and bow down to Sharon Osbourne, because it was Sharon. I don't think it was Ozzy. I think it was Sharon who did this. And you could tell by that even that quote, you could tell, oh, she doesn't even think it's bad to do that. It's good. It's positive, right? She just said it was positive in her own words. So yeah, they took it out, unbelievable. And you can imagine how they felt, Lee and Bob, how they felt. I mean, you can go on YouTube and read about, listen to what they had to say about it. But yeah, everybody needs to know that if you make sure that when you're listening to the albums, that you're listening to the original 82, 81 album, the original releases with Bob Daisley and Lee Kerslake. Make sure that you have those, and make sure that you don't have the 2002 re-released mutilation of these albums, because let me tell you, disgusting, right? Horrible. I mean, I could give you examples that people might understand. Like, what if I were to take out Michael Jackson's backup vocals or something? You know what I mean? Let's go and put in somebody else in there. You just don't do that. You just don't do that. And so, yeah, I just thought I'd bring that up to you, Josh, because I just thought people should know about this, and make sure that check your albums, make sure that you have the right copy. And you can also, to get information, you can also go to discogs. I think it's .com or .org, discogs.com, and you can get so much information about albums, vinyl, CDs. It'll tell you all the versions of this album. It'll give you all this information so you can know, so you can educate yourself to make the proper decision for yourself to know which one you want. Do you want to listen to the 2002 Diary of the Madman, or do you want to listen to the original Diary of the Madman, the one that was meant to be heard?
All right.
Any thoughts, Josh?
I was gonna say, I do agree. You can't do that. Do you know if it was, because it wasn't the Masters then? Because if it was the Masters, that would be destroying part of history.
The Masters?
Yeah, it wasn't the Masters or anything, right?
They have they put them back in the tracks. Because the Masters they have them preserved.
Yeah.
Right. But they went in there and they went another copy or whatever, and they just gave you a BS copy. Right.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Okay.
Yeah, they gave you a bit, and then they went back, and Ozzy said, according to Sharon Osbourne, said that, oh no, put the originals back, just put them back, and then they put them back, So yeah, they have the original masters and stuff like that, and they can go in there and they can mess around with the mix and stuff like that all day long, But yeah, let's talk about movies, right? If we were to talk about movies, let me put a different actor with Forrest Gump. I'm going to take Tom Cruise. I'm going to take Tom Hanks off Tom Cruise. Tom Hanks or Tom Cruise from Top Gun, and we'll put another actor in there and we'll re-release it. How do people feel about that?
One that always stirs big fans like myself is the original Star Wars. When George Lucas went in and added scenes with CGI and just totally destroyed kind of the authentic versions of the originals. So yeah, it has happened not just in as you can tell, not just in the music world, but also in the movie world. But also kind of a very cool transition that I'm never gonna get ever again. Speaking of Star Wars, Red Hot Chili Peppers band, what is it, drummer, I believe, Flea?
Oh, Chad Atkins. The drummer
Flea.
or the bass player? The bass player.
Flea. My bad. The bass player, Flea,
Yes.
is made his debut in the Star Wars Disney Plus as in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Well, it's
very weird tie-in to this bringing up Star Wars.
That's that's a new movie though, right? It's not like they they put him in as an Ewok or something like that. You know what I mean? And,
No, that'd
and
be pretty
replace
funny. Yeah,
and replace an Ewok. You know what I mean? That
yeah,
would be the equivalence to what we're talking about.
that'd be like replacing a flea with Chewbacca.
Yeah, I mean that. Yeah, but I mean it's just incredible that somebody can do something like whether it's movies, whether it's music, it doesn't really matter. It's like and then on top of that, what makes it even worse is that you do something like that, and then you don't even tell nobody about it. So people think they're getting the original one or whatever, and they're not. You know what I mean?
Well, I hope that there's rules about that now because maybe back then they're a little bit lax on it, but I would like to believe that they became a little more stringent on it.
It's that, and like I said, if anybody ever disagrees with me on that, I will happily hear your argument, and we can talk about it. We can talk about it, and if you convince me that I'm wrong, convince me that I'm wrong, because on this one, I don't see how I can be wrong. I mean, of course, it's an opinion. You can thrash, originals all day long. You know what I mean, like that. The universe doesn't care anything about it, but do we choose what we thrash and what we don't thrash? Do we preserve this or we don't preserve this? This can get really dicey, and you would think that you'd want to be preserved if you were to record any of your bands that you're with right now and not have to worry that you might be taken out. I mean, that's just terrible. That's terrible. And thankfully, you're able to distribute your stuff and everything. Your stuff is out and stuff like that. But what if people get albums that don't have you on there? So it's just it's highly unethical in the music world, and I just had to bring that up. And that's pretty much all my thought. The only other thing I can think about, also that reminds me, it's not really the same, but I remember being in the Fish store and hearing Appetite for Destruction, and I mean, I can go on for that album, but I'm going to hold off on that. But they had a Sweet Child of Mine, and for some reason, I guess to cut time, they like to go ahead and take out guitar parts, and butcher that. The middle part of Sweet Child of Mine, how the whole solo is to set up that big solo that he does.
Mm-hmm.
How it goes, whoa, 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 Sweet Child of Mine. You know what I mean? And he goes in. There's this whole part. You know what I mean? When he's like kind of dancing with the guitar.
So, are you saying this was like a radio edit? They cut it down for time.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay.
So there's a little part where it kind of leads. So you kind of need the whole thing holistically to really get a feel for when that big lead comes in with the wah. I think he's doing like this weird wah or something like that. I can't. He's got this. What I'm talking about when he bends the string really high when it comes in. Well, you need the start, the beginning of that, the thing that leads into that, right? To get the full feel, the full effect. Well, they decided to strip that whole part that leads into that. So basically after the I think it's after the verse part, how he goes, whoa, whoa, sweet child of mine, ooh, you know what I mean? Lead love of my eye. And then he goes right into the solo. You know what I mean? Like instead of doing that, that whole beginning part. I don't mean to, sorry for there's only way for me to be able to describe what I'm talking about. Axed it all. That to me just drives me insane. Because not only do I not like what you did there, but every time I go to the store or every time that I hear that, it's in my head now. So now it screws with me. So now every time I hear that song, I'm always thinking is this the original part or is this going to be the butchered part? And it ruins the experience. Now, is anybody else out there that can relate to what I'm talking about not sure whether this is going to be the original or it's going to be the butchered? And so that being uncertain, that uncertainty, it kind of ruins the experience. And now it's in my mind now. I can't get rid of it. Now I'm always thinking.
I know they do that with movies to save time and also when they have to cut out certain things. And that's why I don't watch movies on TV for that reason, because they do cut out some of the best parts. I mean, if it's too gory, it's too gory, but sometimes they cut certain parts that they consider filler in movies, which I think is kind of funny. So it's like I do agree. I do know what you mean. I don't think I've ever heard it in the song, but now I'm gonna be aware of it when I go to a store and they're playing, a good classic. Is this gonna be interrupted by a butchered version, or is this gonna be the original?
See, that's the thing, is that's the reason why I don't like it, is because it just ruins the experience. It just ruins this, because I don't want to think that. I don't want to wonder
I
that.
agree. I
You
do
know,
agree.
and so I think movies, like you're saying, is very relatable in this type of situation. So, anyways, the moral of the story is, like, I understand songs are cut for commercials and stuff like that, and you kind of have to do that stuff. Okay, man, keep it to a minimum. Keep it to a minimum, because I mean, or don't even play the song. Don't do it. If you're gonna play a movie, you're gonna butcher it. You know what I mean? Don't play it. Just choose another movie. Choose a shorter movie. Just don't butcher that one, because yeah, they'll do that. They'll take out parts in movies, and man, I cannot tell you. It's like they're trying to tell you a story, and you have to have all those parts to tell you the story. Not to mention, it's who doesn't want to hear the original? That the way that the director wanted you to hear it, the way you want, or he or she wanted you to see it or hear it. To take it out, and it's almost like it's almost like you're depriving the person who's never seen the original. You're depriving them of their experience by giving them some phony, weird copy.
It's like reading a book and then you read halfway through it, and then someone ripped out 2 pages in the middle of it.
Yeah, and you don't even know they're missing.
Yep.
You know what I mean? That's the problem. At least if you knew they're missing, you can go retrieve it and then be able to see it. But what about the people who don't know? You know what I mean? So it's quite yeah, that stuff, that type of stuff is just wow. That always just really touch buttons on me. You know what I mean? It just really gets my blood going. Anyhow, I think that's about it. I rest my case. Like I said, if anybody opposes, you can write comments, whatever. I don't care. Let me know what you think. I will have a civil conversation with anybody, and give me your arguments. Throw out your arguments at me. Go for it. Let me have it. I'm willing to go. I'm willing to do go to my grave with this one. Vigorously defend the original works of albums, because man, that should never happen. I'll just leave it at that.
All right, and that is Joey's 2 cents on the matter.
I
All right.
mean,
So I was just flipping through here and I came across an article. May 28th, 1991, excuse me, Smashing Pumpkins debut album Gish.
Gish, yeah, yeah. See that album, not too familiar with it. I know all the Smashing Pumpkins fans probably would just nail me on that, but I don't know. It just I've never really. I probably know the songs, but I don't know that it belongs to that album. The songs.
I mean,
Um,
you can't be blamed because I mean, there's sophomore and junior album, Siamese Dream, and the Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness are their second and third albums, which skyrocketed the Smashing Pumpkins Billy Corgan all the way to the stratosphere in the early to mid '90s.
right.
You were there. You're a product. You were there. What were the Smashing Pumpkins in that time?
Well, here, I mean, okay. First of all, it wasn't my. It's not even my scene, right? I mean, I'm a metalhead guy, and so that's why I don't know Gish. I know the Siamese Dream because it was so radio played, so mainstream at the time, and so I remember hearing it, and being the metalhead that I was, for me to like something like that, a rocking album, uh, was quite unbelievable, because I remember listening to every single song off that album, and I could not find a song I didn't like. Every song to me was like a hit song. Just the way it sounds, the songs are just well written, very catchy. The sound of the amps I like a lot. So the production I like on that album a lot. Uh, and it just has a nostalgia to me. I remember it from my high school. Um, so the experiences are there for me. So that album, in my opinion, in my list, goes down. Definitely, it's in my top 10 favorite of all time. All
And
time.
which one are we talking about?
Siamese Dream.
Siamese Dream.
See, so yeah, so Gish, and surprisingly, I didn't really listen to Gish. I was so, again, I get blown on these albums so much that I don't listen to anything else. So the Siamese Dream I was like on forever, and I never quite got off of it.
So actually, going back to probably our first podcast, we talked about openings. We talked about openings. How about opening title number one? First song on the album. If someone put on a Siamese Dream and the first song they listened to was Cherub Rock.
Yeah.
Man, that song,
Yeah.
legendary.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's I mean, just the way it sounds, you know what I mean? Like the guitar tone of that album, it just sounds perfect to Billy Corgan's voice. Like it accommodates his voice, and it sounds different. How else do I analyze it? It's just the tone. I love the guitar tone of that album, and the bass is perfect. The bass is doing what it needs to do. It's backing up everything the way it needs to be. And it's what's her name? Marcy, I think her name is.
Darcy, yeah.
Darcy. I'm sorry, excuse me, not Marcy. Darcy. It's been like 30 years.
So yeah, on this album's credited Billy Corgan, James Iha, Darcy, and
Darcy.
Jimmy.
Yeah, because Darcy has been long out of the band. I think she left a long time ago or something like that. But she did her work and she did it well. I mean, gosh, she
Siamese Dream, Cherub Rock, Today, Rocket, Disarm, and Mayonnaise.
I mean, you can keep going with that. I mean, isn't there's every song, bro. I mean, every song.
Space Boy.
I mean, I'm talking like every album that I've ever heard in my life. You got to put I have to fit it in the top. I have to fit this album in the top 10. If you like every single song, I mean, how could you not? I mean, there's albums out there that I love, but there's a song or two that are like, you could have got rid of this one. All right, I can go without this one. There's always that one or two song. This album is not. This is not what this album is. This album, every song goes well. Even the track listings. I know it's a lost art, but the track listings are perfectly matched. First, second, third, fourth. I think it sounds good the whole way through. I like the album cover. It's got the Siamese Dream with the head stuck together. I think that's cool.
Yes, sir.
What did that come? That came out like I want to say it came out 91 or something like that.
Oh no, it is the peak of the 90s of the grunge. It came out 1993.
93. Came out in 93. Okay. Wow. And what? So yeah, that one.
I mean, Billy Corgan, he has a very unique voice. He's a very complex individual, especially reading up on stuff now. But kind of like a sad, lonely, emo teen growing up. And then he just became he put all that creativeness, all that feeling into this art.
Right.
And his voice had pain when he sang a lot of the times, which was awesome. Like he knew how to sing, he knew how to project his voice, he knew when to basically feel pain when he was singing. And I think that's one thing great about Billy Corgan.
I mean, we got something out of his depressive childhood, huh?
Unfortunately.
I mean, sorry, Billy, but I mean, we got a masterpiece of an album from you. So I guess that's the good thing that came out of your childhood. You put out something that was just. I mean, how they always tell you like what album you'll take on an island with you. You know what I mean? Like if that would be one of the albums I would take with me.
In many interviews, he's always talked about his troubled past, his insecurities, suffered nervous breakdowns. I mean, heck, this guy is the product of that time.
Yeah,
and
he definitely is. In the videos, you can't forget the videos that they had. I think they had a video for Disarm. They had a video for Cherub Rock. And what other videos did they have for that album? I think they had at least I know two they had for sure. I don't know if they had a video for the second song. Did they have a video for Mayonnaise?
They
See,
did. They did mayonnaise. Yep.
yeah, because back then having videos wasn't so much, abundant as it is now. Now I know like bands like I know Metallica, they probably put out a video for every song now off the album. Before like Metallica went 4 albums without putting out a video, right? They didn't come out with a one till like their 4th album, right? And now they put out like a video for every single song for every on their album. So it's like it's just a different time now. But yeah, but so how many they did probably what 4 videos off that album?
Yeah. At least
Yeah,
4.
at least okay, yeah. So to me, that's the album,
And then which was followed up by Melancholy and Infinite Sadness.
right?
I mean, it's just another classic, another product of its time, with songs like Tonight, Zero, Bullet with the Butterfly Wings, Muzzle.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, what could you say? It's one of my favorite bands. I don't know where to place them. They're for sure in my top 25, but it's one of those bands, and I said before the show I was going to tell you the story. The story was when we were both going to school, which was not that long ago. Right. It was my last year, and it was your first year, or when was?
Well, I just transferred, and it was my, I did 2 years. I had a 2-year stint.
For many of you viewers that might be confused, we're both transfers.
Yeah.
So my last like 2 quarters, you know how when we started talking, one of our first episodes, you said that you were listening to Chevelle over and over again.
Oh yeah.
I could probably say for a good minute, it was months. I remember studying for a final, listening to especially Bullet with Butterfly Wings over and over again. And really? I don't know why, but I just kept listening. And that was the time I really kind of understood Smashing Pumpkins, because I just kept listening to their albums. These last 2 for sure, Siamese Dreams and Melancholy, because I just had it over and over again, just playing and playing, and I really felt the artisticness coming out. And there's just great songs over and over again with was it The World is a Vampire?
Set to dream.
Yeah. And yeah, I just kept listening to that song over and over again. And I don't know, I have a memory that imprinted in my head that I probably will never lose. Listening to Smashing Pumpkins, those 2 albums for sure, over and over again, my senior year at UCLA.
Yeah, so see, these experiences is why we love music. Because it's like it's not just the album, it's what I was doing at the time that I was listening.
Yep,
where I was at in my life.
I was listening to it. I think I was, with confidence, I could say I was probably humming it when I was doing my final. Because
well, man, at least you were at ease. You weren't nervous.
Yeah, I think that's why. It's like, it's just.
I mean,
Vampire, is over and over.
Yeah, yeah. I mean that whole pre-chorus, and then the spider, my rate. Yeah, I'm just a rat in a cage.
I think that's why it's that one lyric I was trying to get out this whole time, like a rat in a cage. That's how I felt going to school sometime. I think that's why I kept listening to it.
Like you're not getting anywhere. Like you're just spinning and not going anywhere. Kind of like how a rat is moving.
I don't know. I just felt like I was just a rat in the system, trying to make myself, and to become something, graduate, So
yeah, because there's so many. Because there's only like 40,000 people that go to UCLA. So you're just like a little, but you just got to make your world small. But yeah, I know what you're saying, and we did make our world small because we hooked up, started talking to each other, and it didn't really matter how many people were at the school. It was just like me and you talking, and whatever, you know what I mean? We made our own little world, I guess you could say. And so, yeah, with the Smashing Pumpkins, it's just the first band we mentioned off the list. But I mean, holy cow, I have to take a minute here to talk about, the impression that band has made on me. And I really mean that.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely. I
so
you grew up on that time, and I somehow found it and it clicked with me. I think they're awesome. Billy Corgan, a very complex individual. And now for my wrestling fans out there, if you know that he is now the president, or he now owns NWA, which is pretty cool. Catch that on YouTube. NWA Power, awesome. Billy Corgan, congratulations to him for that. So coming up on this Loudwire article I found on the top 50 hard rock and metal bands. We were just skimming through, Joey and I, and we're like, let's just talk about the last 10.
yeah, let's do it.
So
The last
coming up,
10.
the last 10, the first 10, however you want to categorize it. So these are the best metal and hard rock debut albums. So you're gonna get in this list is a lot of the self-titled albums, with number 10 coming in at number 10, Iron Maiden. Joey, what do you have to say about this album?
I mean, it's Iron Maiden. I mean, they're in a whole different universe, you know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, anything Iron Maiden is like I want to accept. So yeah, I somewhere in time, in Power Slave are the ones that I really listen to a lot. So for me, those are the ones that I really enjoy. But all their albums, especially the ones in the '80s, from that till Fear of the Dark. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of them. I mean, what do you think about that as far as the self-titled one goes?
I mean, I agree with you. My first taste of Iron Maiden was most likely Number of the Beast or Power Slave. Not really the debut album, but you have to go back and listen to it just to kind of see where they're getting their footing. So I do think it's an important album for sure, because it is probably one of the most influential bands, and I think it was the first introduction of Eddie. Kind of in this weird, decrepit look he started going by, but there we go,
Yeah,
number 10.
It's definitely. It's definitely important, and that's with their first singer, right?
Yes, sir.
That's with their first singer. So yeah, it's just everything, like all my knowledge is in the Power Slave, Seventh Son of the Seventh Son, and Somewhere in Time.
Yep.
And Fear of the Dark. I even like Fear of the Dark a lot.
There you go.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, Iron Maiden is, but Iron Maiden is one of those bands that they were big for me. They were very prevalent when I was in high school. But these days I've kind of moved, listen to other things now. But they definitely made their mark. I mean, they have Iron Maiden toothbrushes now. They got socks. They got. I mean, they're like the marketing, gods. I mean, there's no other buddy who markets as much as Iron Maiden. They got sandals. They got, what do they got?
I was gonna say, you got one band
Underwear
going by the name Kiss that can challenge you on that.
The Kiss book, yeah. Kiss is probably like the only other, they may have more merchandise than Iron Maiden does, but Iron Maiden, holy moly, they got a lot of merchandise, so.
All right, so let's continue here on this list.
Yeah.
Here's a band that you and I both really care for, Van Halen.
So the self-titled Van Halen?
Yes,
Is that
sir.
what we're talking about? So let's quickly go.
Because I know when I first met you, you had said that, I could be wrong, but did you say Eddie Van Halen is one of your favorite guitarists?
I mean, there's nobody like him. I mean, yeah. I mean, definitely. How could it not if you're a guitar player? I mean, you got to understand too. Here's an important thing you got to understand. This is back in like 1980. The first album.
Late 70s, early 80s.
This is 78. Mm-hmm. Okay, the internet doesn't come out till like another 20 years. Okay, so first of all, how do you even learn how to play guitar back then? You don't have YouTube. You know, you don't have all these resources back then. You know, you got to get a guitar teacher. You got to go to a music school, get a guitar teacher. And so it was just different back then. Yeah, nowadays you can have an Eddie Van Halen, and on every YouTube video, there's a YouTuber who's an Eddie Van Halen who can do all the things that Eddie Van Halen does. There's no doubt about it. But it's not a fair comparison because this is back then in the late 70s. It was different back then. I mean, you just did not have the resources to be able to learn stuff like this. It's different. It's different back then. But yeah, he is, because of the time he came out and because of the songs he wrote, he's definitely one of the most influential guitar players. I mean, a lot of people probably, came out and made bands because of him. It started bands because of, it's a funny story too, because they used to play in Hollywood a lot at this old place called Gazzari's. I don't know if you heard of it. It's an old club. I think the owner's name was Bill Gazzari. And I hope I'm getting that right. I think it's Gazzari. This is like when I was a kid. I was like I was like 7 probably when this place was happening, right? And I remember that the owner, they used to play there all the time. The owner thought that David Lee Roth was Van Halen. That was his name. So every time they would finish playing, he'd pay him and go, "Hey man, no problem. Thanks, Van. Appreciate everything." And they just never corrected him on that. They just let it go.
That's like the same thing that happens, I guess, when people think, "Oh, that's the guy Led from Led Zeppelin."
But why even correct them? Yeah. Just let them. Just don't do nothing.
Robert Plant is Led. He's Led from Led Zeppelin.
Yeah, hey, thanks, Led, for everything. I appreciate it. You don't correct the person. You just let them be. Especially when it's Bill Gazzari, the owner of the club. You don't correct the owner of the club. He's letting you play. Everything's going good. Whatever. So, anyways, go ahead.
Debut album. Ain't Talking About Love.
Well, first of all, we got to talk about Running with the Devil, right?
Well, I was going to say that was probably the first song I guarantee that I heard from Van Halen, just like many folks out here. And I actually heard it on the movie Ready to Rumble. And I'm like, what is this song? They were singing it. And I immediately try to find it, who sang it. I found it, and it became one of my staple songs. I do love it. It is legendary.
Yeah, let's talk about the verse. Okay, so it goes. Okay, so when Eddie Van Halen does that strum, that tone of the guitar, it just sounds so Eddie. It just, to me, I get the feeling like we're at a bar. You know what I mean? Like we're playing at a bar somewhere with that tone. I don't know. I get that feeling where it's just like classic Eddie with that when he hits those strings on that verse part. And then obviously, I mean, when you have an Eddie Van Halen like that, right? And then for your front man, you have another all-star guy, David Lee Roth, who's probably, I mean, can you think of a better front man at that time?
No, he's known as the showman.
And his voice.
Yeah, his voice.
His voice, his showmanship, everything. I mean, that is why Eddie Van, I mean, there's no weak member of the band. That's the thing. It's like you're only as good as your weakest member. Who is the weak member? I mean, the brother is doing exactly what he needs to play on drums. He's playing what he needs to do. He's doing what and so like, and then you have Michael, what's his name? Michael Anthony, right? Who's the bass player, and he's doing what he needs to do. And so, I mean, there's no weak. I mean, you just have all-star after all. I mean, yeah. So I mean, I go crazy over this stuff. But yeah, so you have
get that quick lyric of "I live my life like there's no tomorrow. All I got is I had to steal."
See that the way he does that string, that chord that he plays, that's Eddie Van Halen. That he does that a lot with his songs, and so you have that song, which is when and then when the chorus comes in, it's just like you have like David Lee Roth's personality, Diamond Dave's personality come to light with the chorus there. And so so you have, I mean, great song to start off the album. Then you have Eruption, right? The guitar solo.
Yes, sir.
Right. I mean, every guitar player probably back then tried to learn how to play Eruption, right? That was probably like
That
that was
could be that could be their version of. Actually, well, technically, this one came out before Anesthesia Pulling Teeth, Cliff Burton.
right.
So
That's but for guitar,
yep, for
you know what I
guitar.
mean. So you know, every guitar player had to learn how to play to show their worth and value. You had to know how to play Eruption back then. You know what I mean? I mean, you probably had to like, you know, that was the gold standard for like, okay, what do you got? You know? Yeah. So you got Eruption. You know, we all know that, and you got you really got me. Another good
The
great
Kinks,
song.
yeah, the Kinks.
Yes, Ray Davies is credited on this.
Ain't talking about love.
I mean, okay, so ain't talking about love. It starts with that. It starts with that. It's an A chord on the guitar, and it does that muting with the single notes, right? I mean, that classic Eddie Van Halen style, those muted individual notes, you know, going up and down the neck with that A chord. I mean, he really has a lot of flavor to it. I mean, just yeah. I mean,
Van Halen really came out of the corner fighting out with this debut album, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is coming out fighting. You know, what I mean, I'm just trying to think about how the bridge sounds. I mean, yeah, I mean, yeah. I mean, I'm just thinking these songs are just like it's like I want to listen to them right now. You know.
All right, so let's go on. So coming in at number 8, and once again, this is from the Loudwire. Let me get that name once again.
Yeah.
Boom. It is Loudwire. Top 50 hard rock and metal debut albums. Once again, it's from the Loudwire hard rock and metal debut albums.
Okay.
Perfect. So coming out number 9, or excuse me, I keep losing myself here. All right, coming out number 8, 9 Inch Nails, Pretty Hate Machine.
Okay, so we're talking metal, right? Because I think 9 Inch Nails is kind of like industrial. I think they're like industrial rock or something like that. The genre, right?
I mean, I guess I had to start somewhere, and I guess at that time,
but we're talking about rock, though, right? Metal and rock.
Rock and metal, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So 9 Inch. What album? The first one.
Pretty Hate Machine.
A Pretty Hate Machine. Yeah, I'm not. You know what? I'll be honest with you. I am unfamiliar with that because I was never really a 9 Inch Nails fan. I'll be honest with you.
No,
not saying that they're not good. Just
no, they are a staple of this time.
Yeah, I no, there's no doubt about it. But it's just one of those bands where we never crossed paths.
Yes, sir. And
that's the best way
I can say the same thing too.
I'm not saying nothing.
Yeah, I had a really big. I had a friend who was a really big Nine Inch Nails fan. I mean, he could have spoke to every song. 9 Inch Nails and Tool were his favorite bands.
Yeah, well, Tool. I mean, of course, I've heard of Tool. You know, I mean, but the 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah.
I mean, you know why? It's because 9 Inch Nails, I feel like, was just a different scene. You know what I mean? Like the metalheads when I was going to high school were not listening to 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah,
that was more gothic. That was more gothic.
Yeah, gothic industrial style.
Yeah, that was not my scene. It was not my scene. That's why we didn't cross paths because of that. But you know, I'm willing to take it. I'm willing to listen to it. You know, I'm willing to listen to it and give them a shot. But yeah, I'm unfamiliar with it. I'll be honest with you right now.
Okay, so another one that's not really in the category of hard rock and metal.
Mm-hmm.
Legendary punk band, the Sex Pistols, number 7. Never mind the Bullocks. Here's the Sex Pistols.
Yeah, I mean that's another album I don't listen to very much. Sid Vicious. It's funny because a lot of people would say Sid Vicious wasn't a very good bass player. You know what I mean? And he was too heroined out, you know, all the time. You know, but it's sad what happened to him. But you know the story that happened to him, right? I mean, you know that he went to jail or something like that. He went to Rikers, And when he got clean. He got clean from heroin, and then when he came out, and then his girlfriend, or I'm not really sure, is it Nancy? I think, or that was another girl. I think something like that. Somebody gave him a heroin dose. Like the amount was what he usually used to tolerate,
That
before he
makes
went to
sense.
jail.
That makes
But
sense.
so he did the same, and then it killed him because
That-
he was not at that level anymore, and supposedly that's how he died. And so, but yeah, I hear a lot of people saying he wasn't really that good on they kind of just made it like, I think there's a movie that came out on that, and it's just like he's just definitely the most popular guy of the whole band.
I
It
mean,
wasn't Johnny Rotten.
the Sex Pistols were a product of their time over there in the UK, with such hits as "God Save the Queen," "Anarchy in the UK," probably one of the part of their famous song out
That's
of
the
there.
most famous song that they think they have.
Yes,
That's the number one song. Yeah.
and is credited as the whole album one of the most influential discs of all time.
Yeah, I mean, again, different scene. Punk. That's old punk. And so yeah, I mean, I really get the pleasure to listen to that much because, again, I'm a metalhead. Metalheads listen to metal things.
All right. Speaking of metalhead, listening to metalhead things, coming at number 6, Metallica, "Kill 'Em All."
Yeah, Kill 'Em All. I mean, obviously, it's in its own little area. But I think I mentioned in a previous podcast, I don't listen to it that much anymore because
You have
I feel
the
like
other albums.
I feel like, yeah, because they were just learning about themselves on that album. Like they were just trying to figure it out, and they hadn't bloomed. Okay, they hadn't bloomed yet. I mean, they were just barely a little thing coming out, of a flower, and they really evolved from like the Kill 'Em All '83 to Master Puppets '86, and that 3-year span, man, did they evolve as a band. Probably a lot of credit has to do with how much they toured. They were relentless road dogs, road warriors. I mean, they really toured a lot. And that, my friends, in my opinion, if you're in a band, that's exactly how you get better. That's exactly how you discover your style, is play, 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 and play more.
So funny, a song coming out of here, "Hit the Lights." Just quick funny story. I didn't really like this song when I heard it from Metallica until I heard it covered by a band that I saw live in 2007, 2008 called Black Tide. They're actually a really cool group. I think they only came out with 2 albums. They're really right. I saw them at Soma, and they played "Hit the Lights." And when I heard it there, when they were playing it, and then I was like, wow, this is such a good song, that I'm like, I re-listened to it on Metallica, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know why I did not think.
So is that one of those songs for you where you didn't think much of it, and
Yep.
then somebody had to bring it to your attention, a cover
Well,
band covering it?
because it was you had songs like "Seek and Destroy," "Whiplash," "Jump in the Fire,"
Right.
and then I guess I just kept skipping over "Hit the Lights" or something. I don't know. I just my brain wasn't connecting with it until I heard it from Black Tide and live, where I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go listen to it again, and I got it.
That's cool. And it's funny because they had back then in the '82, they were talking about that band. They had a guitar player for I don't know how he played with them like twice, 2 sessions. His name was Lloyd Grant, and he was Jamaican. I think he was Jamaican. I'm pretty sure he was Jamaican, right? And so so like his claim to fame is playing "Hit the Lights" with Metallica. Because like I said, he only did like 2 sessions back in like '82, and then that was it. And I think they actually brought him on stage to play that song again. I don't know, like 10 years ago, maybe, or something. I don't know, many years, some years ago. And he came up, and that was his thing. His claim to fame was that he played "Hit the Lights" by Metallica. And I think that's what I think about when I think about "Hit the Lights." So yeah, so that album, all the songs are good, of course. That album will beat the living daylights of a lot of metal albums.
Okay.
Yeah, but see, when they compare it to other Metallica albums, it's probably like, when it comes to old Metallica, pre, Black Album, yeah, it's probably my least favorite album out of all the other albums compared. But like again, it's better than a lot of stuff that's out there. So
Oh, well,
yeah.
there you go. All right. So continuing here on the list, or the top five. I don't know how we're going to categorize this, but the top five here, starting with everyone's favorite shirt that they get at Forever 21, the Ramones debut album.
Yeah, the Ramones is another huge band in the punk world. That a lot of bands try to emulate. Like Screeching Weasel is a band that is just like the Queers. Those bands followed because of the Ramones, man. The Ramones are just an unbelievable band. I mean, but they're a punk band. They're not a metal band whatsoever. And he said,
Well, I
this
think
is part of the.
I was gonna say I think the Ramones is a band that they were at a time and they had such a look and they had such a following that even like metalheads were like, all right, the Ramones are cool. They have their style. Because I knew a lot of the hardcore metal fans, and when I was going to school, they liked the Ramones.
Yeah, because they have catchy songs.
I
What I mean?
yeah,
And they have a style, they have a look.
yeah,
And
just that weird black bull haircut, the jean jacket or not jean jacket, leather jacket and some jeans, white shoes.
you're right. And yeah. I mean, they have. I mean, they're pretty much their genre is pretty much straight up punk rock, right?
Yes.
They're like straight up punk rock. And I think of I mean, was it the self-titled album we're talking about?
Yes, sir. So, has songs like
Let's pull that out.
Blitzkrieg Bop, Beat on the Brat, Judy is a Punk, and I Want to Be Your Boyfriend.
Yeah. These songs. Yeah, it's just so like, I don't know, like what are their influences? I mean, I'm thinking that the Beach Boys, maybe. You know what I mean?
I know,
Has
I
to
do,
be
I
their
do get you.
influences.
I do have, I do have to agree with you on that because before them, there was no punk sounding like maybe I guess Iggy, Iggy Pop and the Stooges, but like yeah, I think they're listening to like they wanted to be like the Beach Boys, they wanted to be like the Monkees or stuff like that. With the
Yeah, yeah,
guitars and catchy tunes.
yeah, because that was around when when they're starting. So, but it's always interesting to hear when a band, you know, especially bands who start a genre, like what the heck were you listening to come up with this new genre? And so them, a lot of the stuff has that Beach Boys feel to it. I think,
But then
but
it also had a start of the punks, just quick, 1 or 2 minute songs.
yeah. I mean, they could, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then what I mean, and they play, every song, like that. Yeah, I mean,
I mean, what can you say? The Ramones are a very legendary punk band, and they helped pave the way for all types of music. That
I got to put a plug in for. We were talking about the Ramones. I mean, an old friend of mine's band called the Perverts. Their band hugely influenced by the Ramones. Kurt, the singer, he loves the Ramones more than anything. So the Perverts, check them out. They got a couple videos on YouTube, and yeah, I mean, that's the Ramones style. They play, and there's a lot of bands. Like I told you, Screeching Weasel. I don't know, Josh. I don't know if you've heard of Screeching Weasel much, Josh, and it's on your regular rotation. But they're a band that's they got their own style in their own right. But again, I mean, they hugely influenced by the Ramones. Man, I mean, Ben Weasel is a huge, he bases a lot of his his style of singing from his heroes, like
Mhm.
Joey Ramone and all that. So yeah, but I love Screeching Weasel too. By the way, I mean they're a great band. They're one of my few. I mean, I like a lot of punk bands, but they're one that sticks out to me too. And so there's that, and then there's the Queers, another great band. But there's not. I mean, they are straight white, and Ramones are straight from New York, right? So you're getting that New York punk rock sound. Um, and I think everybody's like, is anybody still alive in that band anymore? I think a lot of them are all gone.
I think at least
I
I
think they're
think
all,
at least three of them are gone, but it could be all of them are.
yeah. What
But
what what a band? You know what I mean?
very
Um,
influential, very influential. And then speaking of influential, here coming in at number 4, debut album of the Jimi Hendrix Experience. Are you experienced?
yeah, I mean that's a rock blues album, right? So I mean, again, this is another figure.
This was
My
prime
dad's.
example. Yeah, prime example of its era.
Let me tell you something. I knew who Jimi Hendrix was when I was like 3 years old. Like my dad played this guy. He played Hendrix nonstop. So yeah, he's huge, monumental in a guitar play. If you're a guitar player, you gotta be familiar with his music, because the way he plays, he uses his thumb a lot when he plays the
Yeah,
guitar, grips the way he grips the neck. Um, and,
yeah.
and
Jimi Hendrix is quoted many times as being one of the greatest
yeah,
guitar players ever.
well, yeah. I mean, he's got the psychedelic thing going on with the guitar set style, and then you cannot forget Stevie Ray Vaughan. You know, Stevie Ray Vaughan, in my opinion, he's kind of like the way I listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan, he kind of like polishes. I want to say polishes up Hendrix. Like he makes it, he fine tunes it. Not to say that that's any better or worse. It's very clear to make that. Got to make that clear. But it just sounds like a more cleaner sound when Stevie Ray Vaughan plays. But I don't know. It depends on what you prefer. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Hendrix has a more dirtier type of sound, a more raw
Well, it
type of.
was kind of like the pinnacle of the psychedelic era.
Yeah, exactly. So like yeah, I mean, I love both of them to death. I mean, Stevie Ray Vaughan, is the musician's musician, right? He is the musician to the musician's love, because he was just a workhorse. And so when you talk about Hendrix, I got to talk about Vaughn too. I got because he was hugely influenced with Hendrix, and he's a big name in his own right. So yeah, I mean Hendrix. And what album was that? That was the
Are you
self.
experienced
Yeah, Are You Experienced? I mean, we
with
got to. I
with?
mean, we have to take a minute to go to. It's such an important album.
I mean, you have Are You Experienced? Hey Joe, Foxy Lady, and of course the
Yeah,
ever popular bow 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 bow
yeah.
Purple Haze.
Yeah. So. I mean, so basically, that album has pretty much all his radio hits, practically, right? Foxy Lady. I mean, Red House. I mean, Red House is probably is my off. We're talking about our experience, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we're talking about. I'm sorry because I'm just listening to these music the songs in my head when you're talking to me now. Um, yeah, I think Red House is probably my favorite on this album. I mean, it's just one of those type of songs that once I hear it, dude, I'm gonna order some beers. I mean, it's just so down and dirty.
And if you're Joe Rogan, you're gonna take psychedelics and eat lick toads.
No, I'm not. I'm not gonna do any of that. I'm not gonna do any of that. Beer's good enough for me. But Red House, you know, that's probably my favorite. What's your favorite off this album?
I just I I'm just a sucker. I love that the Purple Haze. I just love that bow, bow, dee 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 dee. Like
You know what? There's two different editions because I'm looking at the UK edition. Okay, this is kind of getting complicated. The track listings on here. Um, Stone Free on that album too. Is it Stone Free on there?
let me see. Now you're getting
Oh,
me confused too.
Okay, yeah, it's good. So here it is. The original North American edition, the original
Okay.
Purple Haze, Manic Depression, Hey Joe, Love or Confusion, May This Be Love, I Don't Live Today, and side two is the Wing Cries Mary, Fire, Third Stone from the Sun, Foxy Lady, Are You Wow, look at all those songs.
I was like, admittedly, I haven't listened to a lot of Jimi Hendrix, but just I guess the classics. But I did watch the Woodstock documentary that I saw him and the cool little part of Santana on acid when he played his set. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like I said, that's another legendary album. That's a whole conversation in itself. What's next on that list?
Moving on to the top 3 debut albums. Here we go. Number 3, Led Zeppelin, dating back to the late 60s. Led Zeppelin launched this album, their debut album, with such title tracks as Good Times, Bad Times, Babe, I'm Gonna Leave You, Dazed and Confused, and Communication Breakdown.
Wow, those are the songs my dad listened to when he was in high school. Those are the songs that he I'm telling you, you got to wonder how it was to be back then in that style, wearing like the what do they call the Canadian tuxedo with the
Yep.
Levi jacket and the Levi pants both together. I mean, you got to wonder, it was a much simpler time back then. What a cool time it was. You go hang out with your friends and listen to some of these songs, because it was definitely a lifestyle, I would say. Yeah, Babe, I'm Gonna Leave It. I'd always love that song. I got memories for that song, being out in the mountains with my parents, because they'd always listen to this classic rock stuff. And Dazed and Confused. Wow, you shook me. Black Mountainside, Communication Breakdown. I Can't Quit You, Baby. I mean, more time. Wow. I mean, yeah. I mean, that's you think Rolling Stones, you think Led Zeppelin. Those are the big hitters, right? So, and that's another conversation. It's another conversation. That's a whole other world.
I mean, just the bandmates: Robert Plant, Jimmy Page, John Paul Jones, and John Bonham.
Yeah. Yeah, John Bonham, he went out to like a typical rock star, I think I think you've ever read like what he took before he passed away?
No.
Well, he took a lot.
I remember reading, but yeah, I was more into like the Jimmy Page occult stuff I was reading about. Very, very creepy individual, but he plays like no other.
Yeah, he's I mean, he went out typical rock star fashion, and what a hell of a drummer. And I think his son plays. I just when I read it, his son plays drums now. But then he played for Led Zeppelin too. I think he might have filled in. I don't know.
Yeah,
I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But
yeah, Jimmy Page, kind
Jimmy
of quote
Page.
unquote Satanist, maybe. He for sure is a practitioner of the occult. Did he sell his soul to the devil? Who knows? But he sure played like one.
Really? And you know what? I mean, aside from that, I mean, who knows? I mean, with these guys, I mean, they were probably curious about stuff. They read a lot of stuff. But what I remember hearing in the '80s, a lot of Jimmy Page's back when he was in a band called The Firm. My dad used to listen to that album a lot. Radioactive was a song I remember. So but I mean, this goes back '80s, So yeah, so you got them. What's the next on the list?
All right, number 2. Black Sabbath.
The original album. Yeah, I mean that album. We talked about that on last podcast when we.
I don't know, but I know we've talked about Black Sabbath. We talked about Ozzy. This band, very dark, very heavy, haunting lyrics. Just it struck panic. It struck terror in the listeners because it was just spooky. A great, and then obviously probably one of the greatest album covers. I think this was Ozzy's wife at the time.
Yeah.
You would think it's some kind of witch. but a very great album. In They topped it with their following albums after that. That's for sure.
Yeah. I mean, it's again. I mean, they're discovering that they're getting better as they go. I think, in my opinion, they're learning. I mean, you heard about the Tony Iommi thing where he cut his finger off. He had like a fake fingertip. Yeah, and yeah, he it was like an accident. He cut it off. I think we were just working. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't think that many people know about that. Um, I mean, I'm trying to see. I don't. I'm trying to remember how it affected his guitar playing. I don't know if he like. Uh, yeah, I mean, it's
As you said, another conversation for another time.
yeah, we're gonna talk about that time, but I mean that yeah, a lot of people don't know he lost his fingertips I think it was on his guitar playing hand, if I can remember. Um, the hand that he has to fret. Um, I gotta, I gotta read about the stuff. It's been a while since I read about that, but it's another conversation. But yeah, if anybody doesn't know, if you look, you'll see like this. I don't know, like this weird fingertip, fake finger, artificial fingertip that he has on his. I think it's on his fretting hand too. So, yeah.
Well, okay. Well, there you go. And here we go at number 1, quoted as Loudwire's top 50 hard rock metal debut albums. Coming in at number 1, Guns N' Roses, Appetite for Destruction.
Okay, here's the thing about that album. Okay, what's funny? They recorded that album, and nothing happened. I remember reading that, for like a year, there was no buzz. Like it just like sat there and didn't really take off for a whole year. Because I remember reading it, like I told you, the Slash book, and he talked about how it didn't really take off as fast as they thought it was going to take off, and they're sitting like on a gold mine, And but here's the thing with that album, again, just like the Smashing Pumpkins album we're talking about Siamese Dream. Every song is killer on that album. Period. There is not one bad song on that album. So I always like listening to the Rocks. What do you call it? They have the live at the Ritz. You can get it on YouTube. I think it's from '89, and all they play is Appetite because that's all they have at that time, right? So they're destroying the world with Appetite, which is nice. And I think, in my opinion, I mean, that is their prime right there, '89. Of course, they came out Use Your Illusion 1 and 2, and there's some great songs on there. But if it was me and I can go back in time, I would rather go back in time '89 before Use Your Illusion. I would rather go out listening to that one album, all the songs about that, because I really think that was really when they were destroying the world. 1989, 1990. And then then Use Your Illusion was a great album. Those are two great albums too,
So Appetite for Destruction had endless radio play with these 3 songs.
Right.
Paradise City,
of course,
Sweet Child of Mine, and the ever popular Welcome to the Jungle.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Welcome to the Jungle, I remember off the movie Lean on Me. Okay. Have you ever seen that movie in the beginning when the whole place goes to crap, the high school, after Joe Clark leaves? And when it's going to crap and everything's going wrong, they have the Welcome to the Jungle song. So it's like, it's great because, like I said, like we were talking about movies earlier. Music is so important with movies and scenes and stuff like that. Choosing the right song for the scene is very important. And so in that movie, they picked a great song. I mean, it introduced a lot of people to Guns N' Roses back then by having that song. And you know how they got Guns N' Roses' name, right? They got Tracy Guns, used to be in LA Guns, and then Roses because Axl Rose. Guns N' Roses, right? Yeah, because they were playing with each other back then, I think. I can remember they were on the scene in Hollywood, and LA Guns was huge. Tracy Guns was playing back then. They put out an album. I can't remember the name of it from '85. Was it with Tracy Guns? God, I don't know. I can't remember everything, but yeah, that was. I mean, Appetite for Destruction. We can go through every single song off that album, you know what I mean? But it's
Where do you place it on your
it's
top?
it's definitely, to me, I have to squeeze it in the top 10 because I think that album is just that important for the heavy metal.
Is that a great way to end the 80s with the Appetite Destruction?
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it's not see, when I think 80s, you know, I'm thinking glam, you know what I mean? It's not glam, it's heavy metal, you know, and you know,
but it screams LA rock scene. That's
oh yeah, I mean, the scene is rock, but the music is not glam.
no,
You know what I
it's
mean?
not.
The music is heavy as heck, you know what I mean? The music is really heavy and bluesy too, you know, like Slash, you know, he definitely has his blues influence in those solos. You know, we're playing pentatonics and stuff like that. So that album,
I remember watching a few documentaries, and they always talked about Guns N' Roses, especially Appetite for Destruction. It's an all around album, and it's an album that encompasses so much of kind of ending the 80s, because it's a band that leading up in the early 80s, you know, you had, you know, bands like Iron Maiden, you know, Motorhead, then you had Metallica, Megadeth, you know, Slayer, and then you had, as you said, the glam scene.
right?
You had Poison, you had White Snake, you had Def Leppard, all these encompassing, and you had Guns N' Roses.
Yeah, Guns N'
And
Roses coming out of that scene. Um, but like what everybody always says, which I think, you know, there's some truth to, is that, you know, Nirvana killed it all with Nevermind, you know. That's when glam died. And a lot of people contribute that album to killing glam or something. I don't know why.
well, and there you go, kind of like the full circle of this, because we started with a grunge, with you know, Smashing Pumpkins anniversary of Gish. So
Yeah.
that wraps up our podcast. You know, we went over the best debuts as told by Loudwire. We spoke about, or actually, Joey had his 2 cents on the Madman, or Diary of a Madman.
Diary of the Madman album. And Blizzard Lost too. Both of them.
And
I mean,
there you go.
both of them they took out. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's just one of those type of things that just you just don't do in the music industry, as far as I've ever known. I've never seen it happen. I mean, I've never knew that you could even do such a thing. I'm trying to even think of any other examples in such a way that was done, and I can't, off the top of my head, think of anything else. I mean, I thought you pretty much your music was set in stone, and no matter how much you disagree with the ex-members of your bands or how much fight you get in or with money and all that, it's done. You know what I mean? You don't re-record stuff, you know, even with all the bands that disagree with each other, you know, I can name them right now, but you know, they're still always on those albums.
All right, and well, there's Joey's his last 2 cents on his 2 cents. But yeah, that will wrap up our podcast here. What a great little episode we had. Any final thoughts, Joey? What are you gonna wrap it up with?
That's about it. I mean, I got to the next podcast. That's I'm out. That's good.
All right, well, thank you everyone for listening. Please remember to like and subscribe. This is Speak of the Madman podcast. I'm Joshua. This is Joey, and we're out.
Hang on.